Hey, everybody, this is Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, and you are watching the 49ers Throwback Show with myself and my partner in crime every Tuesday night at around 5:15, between 5:15 and 5:30. So real, Suneil of So Real Sports Talk TV. Hope everybody's doing great out there. How you doing, Suneil?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Excited to speak about 49er news. We're a few days away from the draft, and a lot of excitement is going on. So we shall see.
Yeah, it's right around the corner. The draft coming up in 2 days. We're not sure if the 49ers will have a pick on Thursday or not. We're going to get into some of that tonight. But before we start, Kim jumps in. He says, "Hey, Jack and Suneil. Hey, Kim, good to have you on." And then also we have Nathan Dickey says, "Hello, guys. Hey, Nathan. Hope you're doing well." So we're gonna just get this party started right away, right off the top. Oh, wait, real quick, we got Bomber coming in too. Says, "Good afternoon, Jack." Thank you. Good afternoon to you too, and also to Suneil as well. He left him out, but uh, a lot of stuff going on around Debo Samuel, and I want to just go ahead and we'll throw this first one up here. How did the 49ers get here with Debo Samuel? And I kind of threw this one at you last minute, but
Yeah, and I mean, you were kind of prefacing this. So could you go over a little bit, maybe the cliff notes of that article that you sent out that kind of got you to think about this question?
Yeah, this has been a question that we've been hearing for about, I don't know, a couple of weeks, right? It's really since the Debo Samuel trade request became public. This has been a question I keep seeing people talk about: is how the 49ers get here with him. And I started thinking back. I kept hearing about the negotiations with George Kittle and how contentious those were, how bad that whole process went. And so I went in and did some that's what Google's for, right? You put a topic into Google, and sometimes it gives you good information, and sometimes it doesn't. Well, this time it popped up with a really nice article from Mike Silver when he was with NFL, working with the NFL over at NFL Network, and he wrote a long summary of the whole process that went into the that re-signing of George Kittle, and it was very contentious. You've heard it referenced the Valentine's Day massacre. That's what Kittle's agent Becta has referred to that as when he reserved, and that was really just the first offer. And he was talking about how the agent was talking about how he got that offer on Valentine's Day, didn't open it up till the next day. And once he looked at it, his response was back to the 49ers, "I'm not even showing this to George Kittle. I'm not even showing this to him. And let me know when you're ready to actually get serious, and then we can start talking." And it went back and forth like this off and on for quite a while, really, until early into the summer. And there was a lot of discussions on Kittle's part about would they sit out the season, because they could. That was an opt-out option there in 2020 with COVID. Would they ask for a trade? Would they do this and that? And what it all was about was money. It's all about money. And it was also about money because of the way the 49ers structure their contracts, which is always trying to be team friendly and give themselves outs all over the place. And George Kittle's whole thing was that he didn't want these option bonuses that were going to, in a lot of ways, limit his ability to go out and play football the way that he plays football. And and that's just that, ultra aggressive approach. And knowing that this is the way the 49ers seem to do business with everybody. I mean, you go back just in this Debo Samuel situation, Jimmy Ward was like, yeah, he's going to learn about Parag, right? So we have a pretty good idea of how the 49ers do business. And I could see where a guy like Debo Samuel getting, even if it was $19 million, if it was $19 million, but structured all goofy like the Kittle deal was up front, in the way the 49ers like to try to do this, I could see where he'd get upset. And, from everything that I read, it just seemed like there was a here's the number, and here is the laundry list of reasons why we feel that this is a good number. And I could see a lot of things being on that laundry list that would rub me wrong if I was Debo Samuel, because number one, being something to do with him, running the ball so much, and the chance of injuries and those kind of things. And there in comes that whole, situation where Debo is unhappy with his usage, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot that could be extrapolated from that. I think that's a very good starting point as far as how we got here. I think the biggest thing is the 49ers tried to do the same type of negotiating tactics in a completely different environment and situation. And the difference between, I guess, all of these other negotiations versus the one with Deebo is there's already been so many contracts that have already happened, and there's so much competition right now for wide receivers. So, when that negotiation with, let's say, George Kittle, there wasn't 5 or 6 top end tight ends that were all negotiating at the same time. When Fred Warner, when they were negotiating with Fred Warner, there wasn't 5 or 6 top level middle linebackers. There was only 2, right? Now we've seen, before Deebo even got in the room or had a discussion, or his team had a discussion with the 49ers, the wide receiver room had been reset. The market had been reset twice with Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill. And then Stephon Diggs happened, a few weeks after. And I think Deebo's looking at it like, okay, well, I can't wait till after the draft to have this done, because now my opportunity to go to a different place that will pay me the type of money that I know I can get, because I'm sure there are teams that are willing. He's seeing teams willing to pay the type of money, the type of contracts that he wants. If he waits till after the draft, now he's stuck playing for the 49ers the rest of his contract, even if they can't come to terms, and then potentially the whole franchise tag game. So he knows that he's stuck maybe with the 49ers for the next 2 to 3 years based off of all of his leverage goes after the draft. So I could understand that it gets to a point where it's like, okay, you're going to lowball me where we're not even close to numbers, even though you know what I've been able to do for this team, knowing what else is out there in the market for guys that are performing or didn't even have the type of year that I had last season. And then you're going to make me wait to be a team player till after the draft to be able to figure this out. No, I'd rather you trade me now to a team that I know is willing to do business with me before I don't have any of that leverage to be able to go anywhere else. And I'm just stuck making, then he's going to be forced to take whatever the 49ers give him at that point, Jack, because his contract is so little compared to what his impact is on the field. Like, he can't play for $5 million or whatever he would get paid this season. It just isn't the right business decision for him, his family. And like you said, an injury could take him out. He knows that too. And then all of a sudden now he has zero leverage. So 49ers aren't franchising him if he missed out, majority of the season. You know what I mean? So that's where I think it is. I think it's just I put this onus on the 49ers that they could have made this a much easier transition if they wouldn't have just played the same type of game that they usually play. And they did. And I think Deebo is doing what he needs to do. And it's just a sad situation, because for me, it just comes to a head where the 49ers, in my eyes, either have to keep a disgruntled player on their roster out of principle, or trade one of their biggest superstars, because it's just it's an untenable situation.
Yeah, I think we're both on the same page with the whole situation, and I think we both believe that it has to do with money, and it has to do with with the 49ers doing business the way they always do. And I see the question in there as far as how do we know for sure the 49ers are lowballing them? We know that based off their history. The 49ers aren't going to come in with an offer of $25 million if that's what their top level is, the line that they're going to go to. That's just not the way they've ever done it. Every deal that, look, just last year they signed Trent Williams to become the highest paid left tackle in the league, but he was ready to walk. He actually had to go to Kyle Shanahan to get Kyle Shanahan involved to step in, or else he was going to leave, and he was going to go to I think it was Kansas City.
Kansas City. Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until Shanahan got involved that that got all settled. It's a little bit different situation with Samuel because he's not a free agent, but everybody's been through this. Kittle went through it a couple of years ago. Fred Warner, his deal was a little bit different because Fred Warner, also, you're only talking about $20 million a year in that range for him to become the highest paid, linebacker. I don't know. There's just plenty of history with this team and this organization, with the guys that are in charge, to understand how they do business. And this goes back to 2011, 2012, and even before that, as far as the way that these guys go about doing their business, because it's the same guy in charge.
Yeah, and I mean, I just think, like, for me to answer that question, how do we know that they're lowballing him, is because in my mind, if the 49ers have already in their mind like decided, hey, we budgeted for Deebo, and then you saw the presser with Lynch saying, I can't see myself walking away we can't see ourselves walking away from a talent like Deebo, and these type of statements that they're making, that they want Deebo here. Well, if that's the case, like, and Deebo's really like, nobody knows the situation but me and the team and my agent and all this kind of stuff. It seems like it's just, hey, here's the number, let's get to this number, and then this deal is done. But that's not the case, right? We're still hearing about that he's requesting a trade. Could it be he wants to go elsewhere? Could it be he doesn't want to be on the West Coast? I don't know. But for me, that whole snippet with when he was in Instagram with behind when his mom was live on Instagram saying, I still haven't gotten an offer. I could understand, like, the 49ers haven't done an official offer. They've just been like, talking terms or whatever. But for me, this just seems like it would be an easy solution if the 49ers just were, hey, let's keep this guy no matter what. Let's give him whatever the money is that he's asking for. But I just think the number that Deebo is asking for is higher than the 49ers are willing to give, and they're just hoping that he comes down. And I just don't think Deebo's built that way. I think he's either going to get what he wants or he's willing to go elsewhere. So I just think that that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then, and one last thing on this one before we move off of how did they get here. The other thing is, these other receivers we're talking about, like, say, let's just look at Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that Devontae Adams, or excuse me, that Debo Samuel has only put up good numbers 2 out of the 3 years, because one of the years he was injured. But in that one good year and the 2 good years, whatever, over the first 3 years of his career, he's put up better numbers than Devontae Adams when it comes to reception yardage,
sure,
yards per catch, and all those kind of things. When Devontae Adams got his second deal, his first deal, because he's on his second now, or his third, when he got his second deal, when he signed that second contract coming off of his rookie contract, he was the 4th highest paid wide receiver in the league at that point. So when you look at a Debo Samuel, that's saying that Debo Samuel is going to get a signing bonus in the range of $19 to $20 million. That means he's going to get somewhere in the range of about, $60 million guaranteed. And this is just based off of what we've seen this year. We've already seen the top 3. That's Hill, Adams, and Diggs. So we kind of know what the ballpark would be to put him in that same spot as Devontae Adams. Okay, this is the guy who put up better numbers than Adams did. Adams never put up a 1,400-yard season in his first 3 years. I think he's only done that maybe once in his career. And, I just think when the other piece to this is 49ers can't give him a $19 million signing bonus right now anyway. If they were to agree to a contract today and and it was signed tomorrow, the 49ers would be over the salary cap because they have an anchor in their way right now. I know there's other things that they could do to free up a little bit of space to get them underneath it. But right now they can't even give him a $19 million signing bonus because they don't have the cap space to absorb it. So it's a tricky situation for the 49ers where they're in. And that's going to lead us to some of the other areas that we're going to talk about anyway. But real quick, before we get there, we had a super chat from Richie. Thank you for the donation. He says, 25 plus mil for someone that is 30% of the offense. Maybe the picks would be better to get more quality players and create more balance on offense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of along the lines with Richie. I think that with what is being talked about as possible trades for Debo, at the end of the day, the way that I see the league going, Jack, is if Trey Lance isn't what we expect Trey Lance to be, then it doesn't matter if Debo's on the team or Debo's not on the team. Like, at the end of the day, this team is going to go as far as the quarterback play. Because now when you're talking about winning a Super Bowl or making it to a Super Bowl, Jack, the level of quarterbacks you have to go through to get to that point, no matter what conference you're in, is just elite. And you look at a guy like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, what they did when it was Buffalo versus Kansas City. At that point, it wasn't about the talent that was around them. It was about just the ability of that quarterback to go out and make a play time after time after time. You see what Joey Burrow has done, even with a terrible offensive line. He obviously has some good weapons on the outside, but just his ability to keep plays going, his presence and his just calm demeanor to be able to go out there and just win a game, regardless of what he's getting sacked 9 times or whatever the case was in some of those games. It's just the level of quarterback play is really what matters. So for me, I wonder, like, if it's this contentious, what version of Debo are we even getting back if he doesn't get the money that he wants? I just, are the picks better? Like, can we fix holes that can do that, and then have guys like Ayuk step up, and maybe get some guys that we might be talking about it later in the show. That is a viable option now, because there just doesn't seem like a easy end to this situation, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one when you talk about the 30%. I don't know if Debo Samuel is necessarily going to have to be 30% of the offense moving forward. I mean, part of the reason he was 30% of the offense last year was because of the plays that he was making. He was taking screens at the line of scrimmage and taking off for 80 yards, 40 yards, 30 yards. He was making big plays out of screens. He was getting the deep balls. He was the offense. The 49ers are not Jimmy Garoppolo played good enough to help the 49ers get there. But Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't do that if he doesn't have Debo Samuel making big plays for him on little screens, right?
Right.
I mean, here's a couple of nice balls down the sideline. One deep ball against Detroit. He had a deep ball down the sideline against the Rams in Week 18. But and there's some other deep balls as well. But Debo Samuel does things in this 49er offense that there's nobody else that can do. And I just have my thing is, I don't think this offense has the explosiveness out of the backfield. I don't know if they have it in their passing game either. If you take Debo Samuel away from this offense, Brandon Ayuk's going to start to have more trouble getting open, because the attention all goes to him, because there's nobody else on this offense that takes that attention away like Debo Samuel does. So that's the other piece of it too. He gets 30% had 30% of the yards, but he also has a big piece in the focus of where the defense is going.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because I saw Brandon Ayuk in his rookie season without Debo there for a majority of the time play excellent, right? And with lesser quarterback play, to say the least, as far as, he was getting maybe not lesser, because he was playing with quarterbacks that would actually throw the ball deep to him or give him a chance to actually catch the ball. But I think that Brandon Ayuk will be fine as the wide receiver one. And I would imagine that the 49ers wouldn't just stay pat with the receivers on the books. Now, am I trying to say there's a 1-for-1 replacement for Debo? Absolutely not. Like, Debo is 1 of 1. Having Debo on the team is my first choice. That's what I would want to happen. But to say that, I think it's a stretch for me that a lot of people are saying that this team couldn't be successful if Debo wasn't on the team. I just disagree with that. I think that this team could still be a very competitive team. But it is going to have the running backs have to step up. Brandon Ayuk has to step up, and whatever pieces they bring in as well also have to step up. It's not going to be just one guy could go in and replace what Debo was able to do last season.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I don't think it's just going to be. They're not going to be able to do it. They wouldn't be able to do it with just one guy. That's for sure. Real quick, and then before we get into the draft piece on this, the latest on Alex Mack was. It was interesting yesterday when the questions about Debo Samuel finally started to slow down, and we started to get into some other topics. The question was asked about Alex Mack and has he made a decision, and John Lynch struck quite a different tone with regards to Alex Mack yesterday. It definitely sounded like, at least to me, that the way that he answered that question leads me to believe that Alex Mack is going to be retiring at some point in the next week, I would assume, because the 49ers are going to need to know that situation with Mack really going into the draft. And I think it may be something that maybe they don't want to even put it out there until after the draft because they want to make sure they get the center they want first.
I think that latter part is more accurate. I think they already know, Jack, and they don't want, much like the report that came out that the 49ers have told agents, hey, don't talk about that we've met with you guys and all that kind of stuff, because I think that where, the things John Lynch is saying, the first round is going to be boring and very much downplaying a lot of things. We're just focused on that 61st pick. Like, it's just whatever they say, the exact opposite is what I believe. So I do think that, he even mentioned, we don't ask a lot from our center. It's like BS. Like the lack of center play, Jack, has been one of the defining factors of whether or not this team is a contender or not. When their center position is playing very well, they're contenders, i.e. 2019 with Weston Richburg and 2020 with Alex Mack. When they haven't had good center play, this team hasn't even made the playoffs. So now to just downplay, we don't ask a lot of our center and so on and so forth, that is just complete BS. So for me, I think they know Alex Mack is retiring, and I think that that's going to be one of the biggest positions that they have to fill, whether it be through, bringing in a guy like, Treader. I think we talked about, people are saying that's a solution, or if it's going after one of the, top three centers that are on the draft board, I think those are going to be where the 49ers really have to aim for now.
Yeah. And it definitely sounded like John Lynch went to Alex Mack and said to him, I need to know. If you think you're going to leave, then you better say so. We need to know.
Yo, the fact that every single show you could throw in a music reference, Jack, to me is just epic. I love it, and I don't want you to ever stop, because it's been like every single week, and it's amazing to me.
Hey, at least you appreciate it more than my kids do.
But we're the same generation, so that's why.
and that brings it up. I mean, that leads us right though to the whole Alex Mack thing and Deebo. We've kind of been touching on it a little bit already, but how do Debo Samuel in that situation and then the Alex Mack, how does that impact the 49ers draft, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think Alex Mack obviously creates a position of need, because I don't think that you can really look ideally at the future at the center position with just Brunskill and Brendel, like Lynch pronounced it at his presser, as your centers moving forward. I think that makes it more imperative that the 49ers have to get one of the top centers, because they're going to need somebody that's going to play very quickly in their system. Now, where Deebo plays a role, obviously, if Deebo gets traded, you're assuming you're going to get quite a big haul for him, as far as at least a first round pick, if not first round, second round, and multiple other picks, which then now you're talking about moving into the upper echelon, because there's a guy like Tyler Linderbaum who has a first round grade as a center, Jack, that usually you never see. You don't really see a first round grade on a center unless they're out of this world. And it seems like that's a guy that is pretty much hands down. People look at him and say he's going to be an all-pro for a very long time in this league. So if the 49ers trade Deebo and end up having a shot at a guy like that, now you're looking at, you got your quarterback of the future in Trey Lance, pair him with the center of the future and a guy like Linderbaum, and now you've got those two very important positions in this offense solidified for a decade.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. The 49ers, I believe, are going to be trying to get that 10th pick away from New York. You look at the numbers, the 10th pick is about equal value as to what they were offering to try to get Tyreek Hill. So it would make sense that they just pick up the 10th pick. And I don't see the 49ers being able to get more than one pick. If they get 10, it's going to probably be 10 and 10 alone for Debo Samuel. But with that, at 10, I don't think they take Linderbaum at 10, though. I think if you go 10, then you can start trading back from that spot.
Trading back. That's what I mean. Yep.
A little bit later.
Yeah, I think that you're probably going to be able to, and there's been a report that he might even fall out of the first round. So that just kind of shows that maybe other teams aren't as high on center right now or don't need it as much as maybe the 49ers are going to need it. But, everything's smoke at this point. You never know. Like teams are saying, oh, he'll drop out. But I assume in that 12 to 15 range, maybe 18 max, Jack, that would probably be where I would feel comfortable and still being able to have him. So if they get the 10th pick and, move back a couple of times to pick up maybe some second rounds or even a future first to recoup everything that they gave up in the Trey Lance trade, I think that would be ideal and still get, I think the biggest hole would be at center for me, because I think a lot of people overlook, Jack, that the 2 years that the 49ers had their deepest runs with this regime were because the center position was solidified. And the years that it wasn't, Weston Richburg was injured or, Alex Mack still wasn't on the team. So I think that that's as important of a position that people kind of overlook when it comes to how well this team does.
I think you're overplaying that a little bit. I think you hit on it earlier. I think you're more on the right track when you talked about the importance of the quarterback and the importance of Trey Lance to the 49ers getting to where they want to go this year. Because that was the situation in 2020. They didn't fail to make the playoffs in 2020 because of the center problems that they had. They failed to get to the playoffs in 2020 because they had a quarterback that kept turning the ball over left and right, costing them, between fumbles that were returned for touchdowns and passes, interceptions that were returned for touchdowns. That killed them in so many games that season. I think that was a playoff team, even if they just had a quarterback that was worthy of it. And I'm of the belief that if Daniel Brunskill is the starting center day one for the 49ers, they'd be okay if that's what it took, and they weren't able to get I don't, unless it's Linderbaum, I don't know if there's a guy that's in the draft that's going to come in and step in and play center right away for the 49ers, but we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and I just have to push back because even last season you saw it play out. Alex Mack was getting pushed around at the beginning of the season, and that was when the 49ers were struggling to get wins. Now, obviously that's a chain reaction because then it affects quarterback play, running back play, all that kind of stuff. But when Alex Mack started becoming, the type of player that we expected, that's when the run happened as well. And I don't think it's a coincidence. A lot of people just put it on Deebo, but I think that the solidifying of that center position is something that people just gloss over, because when it's been good, the team has done well. When it's been bad, the team hasn't done well. Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of other factors as well, but I don't think that that's just something where you could say, well, if Jimmy was back there and the center position was not good, that the team still would have had the same success. I just haven't seen that happen.
Yeah, I think we'll just have to agree to disagree on this one, because I feel like the argument that you're making is understandable. Those are also the 2 years that they had their quarterback. I just we didn't see them.
But what I'm saying is, even in those 2 years is a vastly different year, right? That first year when Weston Richburg came back healthy at the beginning of the season and was playing well, the team was 8-1, whatever. Like they won 8 straight wins before they lost. Alex Mack was not playing well at the beginning of the season, and they struggled. They were inconsistent. When he became consistent, this team went on their long run. So that's where it's coming from. Is like, even with those other factors of Jimmy still being there, the team won more when the center position was playing well. Even within the season, you can look at it that way as well.
Yeah, on the 2019 season, I pushed that one more towards the fact that they played some really bad teams in the first half of the year.
They did in this season too, though.
Yes and no. They were, you look at their losses. We'd have to go back through their schedule and look at who they lost to. They lost a close game to Green Bay. That was their first loss of the season.
Seattle, Arizona.
The Seattle game, Garoppolo got hurt. wasn't playing all that great, but he got hurt. They had this, and then after he was out, they had uh, the fumble on special teams early on. You had the Robbie Gould be out, and so you have a field goal that's in not good, and so instead of being up 10-7, you're it's tied at 7-7. All kinds of things went into that one. Arizona was playing really good at that time of the season. 49ers were awful in the first game. But there's a lot of different things. That would be a fun. That's a discussion for another time, because we're focusing on the draft right now. Suneil, can you not keep getting me off track?
I just try to keep you on your toes, man. That's why you bring me on here.
No, you do, and I think we've already hit on this one too. The center through the free agency and draft, and you've talked about, the one free agent that's out there is J.C. Tretter. That's the name that keeps getting brought up. What are your thoughts on J.C. Tretter? What are your thoughts on this? Do the 49ers go just do the draft? Do they add a center through free agency, or would it be both of those? If Alex Mack does indeed decide that he's going to step away.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the 49ers are, it's interesting because I don't know. I would assume that J.C. Tretter actually would be option number one for them, because you saw how they solved the last time they had a situation like this. So, in 2000, what was it, 2020, when, the left tackle was injured, was retired, right? Nobody kind of knew about it. It was kind of very similar and eerie to what we're dealing with right now. And then the 49ers went out and traded a third and a fifth for Trent Williams. So they seem to like getting veteran presence at positions of need when it comes to the offensive line. They did that with Lakin. Now they obviously have some young guys there. I don't know how young they want their offensive line to be. But to me, if they don't have that opportunity to get a guy like Linderbaum, I think they might go veteran at that position with a guy like J.C. Tretter, especially with it seems like at least those two guard positions might be with second year players. You would want a little more maybe seniority there or experience there. I could see them doing that, or going through the draft with a guy like Linderbaum if they end up with the first round pick.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you on that one. I definitely think that you could see them going in that direction for sure. And then since we're talking about free agent or the offensive line, you brought that up. I thought it was pretty interesting yesterday with Mike McGlinchey. He looked like he was doing pretty good.
Yeah, and that's great to see because with McGlinchey there, I think this offensive line becomes a lot better, especially the rushing attack. Obviously, where he shines is his run blocking, and the team struggled to run it to the right side when he was gone. They went strictly to running to the left side behind, Trent and Lakin, and that obviously minimizes the opportunity for what this rushing attack could be. So I think McGlinchey being healthy, and if he could start from week one without any restrictions or like a pitch count or whatever it is, I think this makes this offensive line that much better. Especially with, him. This would be his fifth year, right, Jack?
That's correct. He's going.
So that would be it's a contract year for him. So it would be a contract year based off of what he does. This is going to be what ends up happening for his next contract signing. So you would have a motivated Mike McGlinchey there as your right tackle. I think that's very optimal for the 49ers.
Yeah, I think it's a good deal for the 49ers in that it's some news about that offensive line that's positive with in an offseason that's just been filled with question marks about that group. If Mike McGlinchey is he seemed to believe that he's a little bit ahead of schedule with what he was saying. He obviously said he wasn't going to really be doing football activities during the spring, but he expects to be ready come training camp, and that's just a big bonus for the 49ers, I believe, to have him out there. It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out because they exercise that fifth-year option on him. And the last time the 49ers exercised a fifth-year option on a guy, they traded him right before the draft. And we'll see what happens with Big Mike. But I feel like that's a good sign for the 49ers because if they get Mike McGlinchey out at right tackle, that's just one less question mark. And then you're able to focus in on – your center and guard spots. And again, we talked about the centerpiece, and you're going to have if Debo Samuel's gone, I think we see a center come up early.
We're on the same page there, my friend.
Or the other thing that I would like to see, that let me ask you this, and step off of McGlinchey here for just a second. Instead of going Linderbaum in round 1, do you think that there's a possibility that if he's still there, say the 49ers get 10, they trade back a spot or two, but if Garrett Wilson from Ohio State is there, say around somewhere, and let's say if it's even at 10, do you think that Garrett Wilson would be a guy that the 49ers might want to take and go after to not necessarily replace Debo Samuel, but to give them another receiving threat?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that the drop off between the receivers in the first round versus the second round are not as big of a drop off from the center from the first round to the second round. And I think that, when it comes to guys that people are saying are going to hit at offensive line, you tend to just have a lot more success there than any of the skill positions. And that even goes for like defensive edges and stuff like that. So when you have a guy who kind of is just, one, he's coming from Iowa, which just breeds offensive linemen that are just going to be impactful and, do very, very well for a long time. Just that whole Midwest environment, they just do very well when it comes to developing offensive linemen. And then this guy has a first round grade, which you don't see a center with the first round grade pretty much ever, right? It's very rare. So when you get a chance to just solve this problem for a decade, I just don't see how you pass on that for an opportunity of maybe getting somebody that's going to impact, right? So could it be a possibility? I mean, obviously the 49ers zig when everybody thinks they're going to zag. So it absolutely is an opportunity and a possibility. I just think that I think trading back, getting more second rounds, in my eyes, I kind of broke it down on my channel. I was actually wearing the same hoodie for those that want to see it on my channel. But I think that, you trade back, get a couple seconds, and then you could solve, the center position, safety position, edge position, and slot corner with premium players that you just didn't have the option with the way the draft board is right now.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting times to see how this all plays out for the 49ers. I've been of the belief that Debo Samuel is going to be a 49er here in 2022.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, I know that most people, would probably say that they hope that I'm right, but it's funny because yesterday, there was the comment from John Lynch when he came out and he said, you just don't ever want to trade Debo Samuel or let him walk. I think that's actually, I think what it was I think the comment was, you don't ever want to, I don't think he said you don't want to move on from Debo Samuel. I think what he said was you don't want to ever walk away from Debo Samuel. I think that's what he said. And that kind of changes the way that happens. He said, and here, this is what it was. He said, I can't ever imagine wanting to move on from Debo. You just don't let guys like that walk. Okay. That's a really interesting comment if you want to break it down, because they aren't letting Debo Samuel walk.
Right.
They're not going to let Debo Samuel walk. And so,
and
they don't
there's
feel
a
like
difference.
They
use wanting. So even if they trade, that might not be something they want to do. It might be something they have to do based off of how Debo is approaching the situation. So I think it's very key that wanting, Jack, like they probably don't want. Ideally, they would want Debo to sign for whatever contract they're offering him. But if they have to get rid of him because they just can't come to terms with where the money is, then, you have to do what you have to do. So I like the way you picked up on that wanting. Like sometimes you have to do things you have to do, even if you don't want to.
Well, it's not even the wanting part. It's that last part of that. It's you don't just let guys like that walk. Right. And because they're not in a situation where they're going to let him walk. They're not in that situation right now. My situation, my belief is that that could be a precursor to a trade because they feel like they're not going to get a deal done, or it's going to cost them more than they want to spend on a wide receiver, particularly Debo Samuel.
Which is interesting to me because the whole point of having a guy like a quarterback on a rookie contract is supposed to be able to sign your superstars and maybe even overpay for them because you're not paying for a quarterback. But it just seems like we still are paying for a premium quarterback because Jimmy Garoppolo is still on the books, and
Well, and I'm gonna go ahead really quick, and I'm gonna because yesterday after the press conference was over and I did my write up for the Press Democrat, I wrote on there that in that piece that I felt like, based on what John Lynch said, that Debo Samuel was going to be a 49er in 2022. The more I've thought about, and maybe this is just me talking myself out of it, but that one piece, you don't let that guy walk. And then here's the other thing. And I also thought that this meant that he's going to stay, but now the more that I think about it, maybe it didn't. Was when they asked the question was asked about Trey Lance. And as you're building the team, do you think about making sure that you have the best team around Trey Lance for him to be successful? And the answer was yes. And he talked about how they had George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk, and then Debo Samuel. Right. Debo was the third receiver brought up,
right?
Not even the first. And that was after John Lynch had talked about how the way that Debo Samuel plays makes him a team leader and all those kind of things. So I'm getting myself into some deep side. I'm thinking way too much about this. I'm telling you.
Tinfoil hat time. Read between the lines, Jack. Read between the lines.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a huge mistake for the 49ers if they get away from this guy. We'll leave it at that for tonight. Because we'll be able to scream at him here in a couple of days if that's what they do, or I will be. But that brings us to Jimmy Garoppolo as well. Do you think that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to get traded this week?
I think once again that only is if Debo gets traded. So if Debo gets traded, I think they have some assets that they'll get from that they could use to trade Jimmy. I've mentioned, and I don't know how people, if they get that 10th pick and then they package that Jimmy in the 10th to get Carolina's 6th, I think that would be something that would be interesting to see if that could be a move. I don't know. I wish, I know we're supposed to go out here and just state our opinion. I really don't know because I don't think as is right now, Jack, as everything is, Debo's still on the team. And, they just have the 61st pick as their first pick. I don't think Garoppolo gets traded. I think eventually Garoppolo is just going to be a somebody that gets cut when they could recoup that $7.5 million. But if they all of a sudden trade Debo, then I think it makes it easier to trade Jimmy as well.
Yeah, I think the only landing spot here for Garoppolo right now for that to happen this week, or even in the short term, is for it would be to Carolina. It would be Carolina goes with a position other than quarterback with their pick in the first round, and then Jimmy Garoppolo gets traded for. The Panthers don't have any picks until day 3, I believe, after the first round.
137, I believe, after the 6th pick.
Yeah, so in a way, maybe you're going to see Carolina be a team that's looking to trade back a bunch to either get themselves into position for a quarterback that they don't want to overpay in terms of draft capital for. Maybe you can trade back and pick up a second or third round pick or whatever that they can then use for other players as well, and then get the quarterback that they want later on in the first round. So it'll be interesting to see how that one goes. But I think Carolina is the only landing spot. I know that there was reports about. The Panthers, though, don't feel like moving off of Sam Darnold for Jimmy Garoppolo was a big enough upgrade to give up anything.
Yeah, and I just think that articles like that make me believe more that they're interested in Jimmy. Because when it comes to right before the trade or right before the draft,
you don't believe anything anybody's saying.
I'm cynical, Suneil, when it comes to draft week and any article that comes out right before the draft, like. Why wasn't this they would have known this 2 weeks ago? if this was how Carolina felt. But now that it's coming out, now they're posturing. I always think, Jack, who is benefiting from this article? So Carolina putting this out makes me think they are interested in Jimmy, but now they're trying to devalue like how much they have to give up for Jimmy by saying we don't really want him. But the fact that this is even being discussed means that they are thinking about Jimmy as bringing him in and, as a replacement for Darnold.
Yeah. I mean, I know that I looked at Sam Darnold's film last year when a lot of people were thinking and some people that I even respect were saying that he'd be an upgrade over Jimmy Garoppolo, and having watched his tape in New York and then his tape last year in Carolina, there's no way in heck that guy's really even close to Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm sorry, he's an awful quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo, you can say what you want about him, but when you compare him to Sam Darnold, there's a big difference between those two.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people think that maybe the 49ers would have to take Sam Darnold back if they were to do that kind of trade, and I would be open to it because I think it lessens a lot of issues that Jimmy on the roster does. I mean, obviously, initially you're saving $8 million on the cap. And then on top of that, I think that, I just saw what happened with Mitch Trubisky, who was somebody who a lot of people looked at as somebody who was just a bust, I guess you could say. He goes to Buffalo for a year with an offensive coach or offensive coordinator that a lot of people respect and has, success under or being behind a guy like Josh Allen. And now he's, a potential starter in the league, just a year removed from being, a bust in Chicago. So I think Sam Darnold may look at Kyle Shanahan the same way that Mitch Trubisky looked at Brian Daboll and was like, hey, maybe this guy could recuperate my reputation. Maybe that means you could renegotiate that contract to make it even more team friendly for the 49ers. I don't know how that works with the 5th-year option, but yeah, I mean, I could see that as a possibility. And if it means Jimmy's off the books, I'm all for it.
All you want to do is just get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo. Poor Jimmy. He takes your team to the Super Bowl, takes you to the NFC Championship game, and all you want to do is send the guy down the river.
You know why? George Kittle just did an interview where on the More Than or whatever that podcast is that Brian he was on, and I forget what it's called. I'm an athlete or whatever, and he said he's 50-50 when it comes to train Jimmy. If there's more players on the team that are 50-50, get them out. We just need you to be 100% on the young buck because that's the future of the team, and he needs the keys to the car now. So get that option off of the books so we don't have any confusion.
There you go. And then real quick, I gotta correct this one because it came through from Red Eye. It says Valentine's Day Massacre refers to Game of Thrones. Kittle's contract isn't even a proper analogy. It actually goes back to 1929, and Al Capone is where the Valentine's Day Massacre reference comes from. Game of Thrones is a good one too, but it was actually Al Capone, and it was a bloody day in Chicago that day. So back in Valentine's Day, 1929. Look it up, kids. See, it's what you get. You tune into the Jackhammer show with Suneil here for the 49ers throwback, and next thing you know, you're getting a history lesson on gangsters. So what can you say?
And a song. You're gonna get a song and a story.
Yeah, you get a song. If there's any requests, go ahead and put them over in the comment section. I'll take the requests. Yeah, no, it's so if you were to right now give me right now what you think is going to happen Thursday for the 49ers. I know we hadn't talked about this, but I'm putting it on you.
Deebo gets traded to the Jets for the 10th pick, and maybe maybe one of the 38th or whatever. And the 49ers trade back a couple times, pick up some seconds. They draft Tyler Linderbaum in the first round, pick up a safety, pick up an edge, pick up a slot corner, and are still extremely competitive this year. I think they also, we didn't talk about it, but I think they trade for one of these receivers that is available as well.
Yeah, so you're basically telling me that I've got to get my fingers ready to start typing because I'm going to be busy before the draft and on Thursday night is what you're telling me.
Pay attention Thursday. 49ers will make a pick on Thursday. That's my hot take.
Okay, I'm with you there. And then real quick, a couple of things that we haven't talked about, but I just wanted to throw them out because I thought it was kind of fun yesterday. Was Fred Warner comes up to the stage and he starts talking, and they're asking him about contracts and all those kind of things, and then he kind of lets it slip that Marquez Denard has looked good to him and during the early part of OTA, and that he's getting some run over in the slot at the nickel spot. So that was interesting. But he also mentioned Javon Kinlaw. It was as somebody who was standing out to him this offseason. I think that was really good news because we've heard the positive references on Kinlaw from the 49ers. We've heard Kinlaw say it himself. But to have a teammate bring that up like Fred Warner without even being asked specifically about Kinlaw, I thought that was impressive. You got to remember, Warner was also one that was talking up Trey Lance last year during the regular season towards the end of the year without even being questioned about it. So could be pretty good news for the 49ers there.
Future's bright.
They really need to have a good season out of Javon Kinlaw.
Yeah, and I think that, I've been tomorrow on my channel, I'm actually going to do a breakdown of what the 49ers have done under this regime when it comes to drafting. And spoiler alert, each year they've gotten better and better. So I think that we have a lot to look forward to. I think this regime is even though there's a lot of people in the thing saying Lynch needs to be fired and all this kind of stuff, I really think that this regime has done a really great job building a team that has, like you said, made it to the NFC Championship game last 2 times out of the last 3 years and made it to a Super Bowl in that same time frame. It's very tough to do that in this league, and this regime has been able to do that in a very short amount of time from what they inherited to what they have now. I think is hats off to this regime.
Yeah, I think that I agree with you on that. This regime has done a good job. They were minutes. They were in the fourth quarter with the lead in the Super Bowl in 2019. They were back in the NFC Championship game this last year. They've done better through 5 seasons. If they'd won that Super Bowl in year 3, this discussion is completely different because, because they would have won the biggest game of the year, right?
Right.
But that loss is the one blemish on their whole thing, because that's what separates them from being able to say that they are in the same range of the early 80s 49ers in terms of what they were able to do in the first 5 years of that group.
I agree.
So that's the show for tonight. So like Suneil said, just to make sure everybody knows, Suneil over here, he said that Debo Samuel will be traded for the 10th pick in the draft. The 49ers will then trade back a couple of spots. They're going to take Tyler Linderbaum. They're going to then get a receiver, I believe he said.
No,
slot
safety, slot corner, edge.
Slot corner and edge, not a receiver. So they're gonna just get rid of Debo, one of the best wide receivers in the league. They're not going to pick another receiver up though until maybe
Kadarius Toney and Julio Jones.
Yeah, and then we'll see how this all plays out. It's going to be a lot of fun. I do believe that I would like to believe that Debo Samuel is going to be a 49er in 2022, but I am starting to overthink this myself and starting to think that based on some of the things that I heard from John Lynch yesterday, that it is not going to be the case. So we'll all find out together over these next 2 days, because if he's going to get traded, I think that happens before Thursday night at 4 or 5 o'clock, whatever time the draft starts.
I agree.
All right. What have you got going on, Suneil, on your channel?
Yeah, so obviously right after this, I go on to Jesse. So go if you want to get some more takes over there. Go to that. And then tomorrow, like I said, I'm going to do a breakdown of this regime and what they've done in all the rounds of drafting over the last 5 years. And yeah, man, have some fun with the comment section, everybody's input and all that kind of stuff. So probably do that around 7 p.m. Pacific time over on So Real Sports Talk TV. So if you haven't subscribed over there, please do so. I think I'm like 170 away from 1,000, Jack. So hoping to get to that point before the season starts. So that's kind of the goal that I've set for myself.
Well, there you go. If you're subscribed to my channel and you're not already subscribed to Suneil's, please get over there and subscribe. Help him out. And then on top of that, since you're already here, though, before you leave tonight, hit that like button. If you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button here before you go do it over at Suneil's channel. And then also hit the bell notification so you know when we're going live. And last but not least, get yourselves over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. New articles going up. I just put one up there today on Mike McGlinchey and his status. So get over there, check it out, see what Mike McGlinchey had to say yesterday after the John Lynch presser. And I will be back tomorrow with a pre-draft show on my own, be flying solo tomorrow. And then we'll be going from there. So keep your eyes locked on this channel because there's going to be a lot of stuff happening over the next few days with the draft coming up. So thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for the comment section. And thank you, Suneil, for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Jed.
All right. Have a great night, everybody. Take care.